Welcome to Steppin Out. I am your host, D. Lachey. Today's show deals with a serious topic that affects us all: the rapid rise in crime amongst youth and young adults. Many people no longer feel safe doing normal activities like walking the dog, going to the park, or simply taking a drive through the city. Today's guest will help us understand the importance of combating violence amongst youth and the things we can do as a community to bring about change. As we deal with the rise in crime and violence among youth, we have with us Mr. William Mason and educator Pastor Nicholas Patterson and Minister Frederick Germain. So, as we discuss the rise in crime in the community or amongst youth and violence, I would like to ask you, Pastor Patterson, what are some of the things that you try to incorporate in your church or community or teach the parents to help combat crime?
One of the stemmings of crime, like we talked about personally, is social media. I think the involvement of a parent in every child's personal life is important. A lot of people try to pull in programs and initiatives that and take away the fact that first it starts at home. And so one of the things I tell the parents, and just coming from a good family background, is be involved and then show the change that you're trying to come about. We can't teach a lesson we haven't already learned. And I think a lot of children are only repeating what they've seen or what they're experiencing at the homes. And so before we can take out the crime in our children, we must find the issue that lies at home and pull that weed out. And then once they've tried to change, then they can expect change out of their children.
So you believe that some of the issues that the youth are having are because of things that are going on at home?
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly. I'm not going to say that it is all from home, but it can be also nurtured from home. If I learn some of the evolvements or changes in school and I come home and practice them and they are not cut down at the home, then they can be nurtured at home. If they are being supported, if the music and the violent music that I'm listening to in my room and my mom walks past that door and she doesn't acknowledge that I'm listening to music that involve calling a woman out of her name or killing a brother next to me or responding to a brother in violence, then it's being nurtured. And we must stop it at the seed, and sometimes it can be at home.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mason, do you feel, because you being an educator, do you feel that a lot of things that the youth are doing when it comes to crime and violence, do you feel that it starts at home? Do you feel that maybe the school system, churches, and home life, all of that plays a role, or do you feel it started at home as well?
I think all of it plays a role. I think that behavior is learned. And one thing that we do know, if you want a child to learn how to read, you have to teach them. If you want a child to learn good behavior, you have to teach them. So behavior is taught, and we have to model those things. As teachers, when we teach something to children, we model the behavior for the students. So modeling begins at home because parents are the first teachers. So once we clean up what's going around in our communities, then we go back into the home and make sure that parents are reinforcing the things that need to be done in our schools, things that need to be done in the community. Churches have to be involved with making sure that they are on board with mentoring and teaching social skills and conflict resolution to kids, because what they see on TV, what they see in the streets is definitely different from what they should be learning and what they should be exhibiting in the community.
So you believe it's a combination of things and not just necessarily what goes on at home?
Right.
Okay. So what do you think, Mr. Dunlap?
I think one of the biggest things where I think we miss it is one thing we learned at Lake Providence, and Dale, one of our deacons, he puts in us, and we try to teach kids, is devotion before emotion. You get a lot of people who act and react in emotion. And it's your choice if you don't believe in Jesus. That's your choice. I believe in Jesus, but you get a lot of people who don't have a structure, who don't have a foundation. So if you don't believe in the word, how do you structure your house? What leads your house? You know, what are the things that you're going by? because if you don't have structure, you have a free-for-all.
So you're saying that you believe that crime, the rising crime amongst youth and young adults is because they're not faith-based?
No, structure.
Structure.
There's not structure. And I'm not just saying that just as a Christian that we don't have our own issues. But what I'm saying is it goes with the structure. And like I said, I have 4 sons. And with my 4 sons, the structure that I put in place, they're not perfect. They will make their mistakes. But the thing is, they have a structure. They have a set of rules, and the rules that we go by is by the Bible. And we can lead and we can start there. And our biggest thing, and I heard our guest saying also, with that structure, where we lost our structure is we are lacking community. When I was growing up, I had a lot of us had big mamas.
Right.
You know, and no disrespect to anybody who's watching this, but big mamas were 50, 60, 70 years old. You know, then you listen to big mama. Now we don't have those big mamas.
We have grandma.
We have grandmas, and it's so cool to be glam, and if that's what you want to do, all due respect. But we have lost our culture. We have lost our community, and by us losing our community, we've lost our identity. And then when you lose your identity, then you're just out there with no structure, no identity, and no community.
And so you think that is the reason for the rise in crime?
I definitely think because if you know in my case, if you know whose you are, you know who you are. But if you don't know whose you are, that's a different. That's a whole nother.
But you got people that didn't grow up in the church. They're not faith-based, and they don't even believe. But they're not out here committing crimes.
No, I think
They're very successful, but they're not faith-based. They don't believe in Jesus. They may not even believe in God, but they're not out here saying, because I'm not structured or because I'm not faith-based, I'm not out here killing people.
Man, and picking off what he said, it's not necessarily faith-based, but it's a structure, you know. Me walking into my dad's house, and every Thursday I had to take out the trash at a certain time or make sure dishes weren't in the sink and things like that. That was the structure that I walked into. I knew that when I came in the house at a certain time before my mother got home, there had to be some things on the checklist done. That has nothing to do with my faith, but that's all about structure. How does that apply to taking crime out of the community? Well, I had things on the plate that need to be done, which furthermore took time away from me to stand idle. Being idle is one person that is not productive and has time to do anything else than be productive. And so I think in what I'm saying about the people in my church is that parents are not creating, like you said, structure and things for these kids to be doing opposite of going out and doing whatever. Growing up in Memphis, which is one of the most violent places to grow up in the state of Tennessee, a lot of my peers didn't have that same structure. I grew up with kids who didn't know how to wash a dish.
Right.
I know kids who don't know about washing clothes. I know about people who don't get up on Saturday mornings at 7 o'clock cleaning their bathroom or cleaning the house. And their structure. That's structure.
Right.
That has nothing to do with my faith. Now, faith just applies some other principles of yes, sir, or no, sir, or faith gives you learn how to respect the monarchy system. But structure, like he said, gives children something to do that is productive, that will teach them a consistent basis. So when they get out in the workforce, they know how to be successful like those who don't come from faith-based community.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back after these messages. Bye.
It's more than just fashion. It's style. It's grace. It's confidence. It's excitement. It's Jasmine Marie.
It's a book based on a true story. A story that depicts life's harsh realities and the power to overcome. Author Erica Hannah Fowler presents her book, Only If You Knew. Call 901-314-9148 to get your copy today. Have you been looking for the perfect gift for your loved one? Creative Concepts specializes in beautiful custom baskets through creativity and uniqueness that sets them apart from other designers. We have baskets for all occasions and holidays. With a determination to work in a spirit of excellence, every basket is given a creative concept that your loved one will absolutely love. For inquiries and ordering, please visit our website at creativeconceptstoday.com. Follow us on Facebook at Creative Concepts Today and on Instagram at Creative Concepts 2020.
And we're back. We're having a very interesting conversation dealing with crime and violence amongst youth and young adults. Now, Mr. Patterson, Pastor Patterson.
Get it right.
And Mr. Dunlap, I'm getting it right, okay? So you all discussed and made the statement that violence and the rise in crime is because people don't have the structure as far as when it comes to religion or faith-based and structure, that they are not, coincide with each other. They're not parallel. Yeah. So we have viewers that may be on the other side of the screen that may say, well, I didn't grow up in the church, or I didn't raise my kids in church, or I don't even believe in God, but my children aren't out here committing crimes, or I wasn't raised in the church, but I'm not out here committing crime. I'm not robbing people. I'm not going in stores stealing. I'm not shooting folks. I am not, drug addicted or anything like that. So you have those people that are saying, I didn't go to church. So what you're saying does not apply, because just because I don't have God doesn't mean that I'm out here committing crime.
Well, I'm glad you said that, and that's where sometimes we make a mistake, because we have to listen. No disrespect to the host of the show, because I said my house, okay? I said my house. But what happens? People want to attack the church sometimes. I didn't say. I said as far as my house, we create structure into my house, and that's what we go based on. And then I said, are my kids perfect? No, they're not perfect. But that's a structure. So, you're totally right. There's some people out there who grew up in the church, deacons, junior deacons and everything, and they're now in prison. So I totally get that. But I just said, as far as my house, that's what we go based on. And then I said, as far as with the structure. But what it all comes down to, and what Pastor was saying here, is if you believe or if you don't believe, it starts with structure. That's what it comes down to.
I understand that, but I guess I feel more so on the stance of where Mr. Mason comes from when he says that it is everyone's responsibility. It starts in the home. It's as a leader, as a spiritual leader, it is a spiritual leader's responsibility, and even from the aspect of an educator. Like he said an educator has a responsibility to teach you, and I have to exhibit what I'm trying to teach you. So I think it is a responsibility as a whole, and not just to say because I didn't go to church or because I'm not faith-based that I'm out here committing some type of crime. And so then we get to the point where we say, we have these youth out here. They have no respect for God. When I was growing up, if you were cursing when you walked past the church, you would at least shut up when whatever you were saying, you had respect for God's house. Or if the pastor walked up, you would stop whatever you were doing out of respect for the man of God. The children nowadays, generation nowadays, don't have that type of respect. But they're not. How do we take them to the point where you understand that it is not okay to bully other children, or to set another, while you having a summer party and you set another girl on fire, or you pour hot boiling water on her? How do you institute that? That is not okay.
One of the issues is that we have a lot of dream killers in our society now.
Come on now.
And that comes from a lack of hope. When people have a lack of hope because young African Americans, they see themselves on TV denigrated, they see themselves being shot by police officers, they see themselves being talked about or not being put into the upper echelon. You have white privileges come across that people
Is
are
there
talking
such
about
thing
that
as
now.
white privilege,
I mean,
though?
you have all kind of things that
Is there
that
such
make,
thing as white privilege?
I think there is.
Okay, well, go ahead.
But I think that our students, our young people, are feeling the pain of not being valued in our society. And when you don't have hope, you're going to kill anybody else's dream around you. You don't mind killing somebody else's dream. When I was growing up, my father told me behavior is goal-directed, meaning that my behavior should tell people exactly what my goal is. And when you don't have a goal, your behavior is anything. You see what I'm saying? So you have to get kids back in line with having a goal, having hope, and teaching them that no matter what society tells you, you have to have that hope within yourself that I'm going to be somebody, I'm going to overcome whatever the situation might be.
Okay.
And again, we got to know the differences of faith-based and structure.
Yes.
Because we can still kind of tie those two in. I think that those who are online and those who are listening, faith-based is what enhances structure. We also use faith-based principles to preach or teach or enhance what's right and what's wrong, and the prizes of doing what's right and resisting from what's wrong. But again, we got to understand for the rise of crime of these children. Again, I'm gonna preach this all the time. They have too much idle time. And when you have too much idle time, you fall into any traps. I mean, even with me, when I would go opposite of what my father would say and push myself into that position, I would do things like pick up a joint with my friends. Or I would ride down to the corner store knowing that they're going to steal a couple of M&Ms and some Sprite and come out, and knowing that was wrong. But if I went home and followed the structure that was laid out to me, that limit my time of doing what I had no business doing. And I think it's on our parents, and it should be enforced to our parents to give our children a sense of structure, whether you're believing
So
God
you believe parents should get a little nosy?
not necessarily nosy, but be a little strict. I mean, it's different. We're not in Big Mama's time anymore.
No.
Well, I mean, when I was growing up, my mom was nosy. She would come in our room, and she may look at my diary.
And she
During that time, a diary is the same thing as what a cell phone is.
Yes.
So it's like your cell phone
She
is
would
your
be-
modern
she
day
would know.
diary.
She was in your
She was in my business because she don't want to get caught by surprise.
Well,
Right.
So I feel like that parents should get a little nosy. Check your children's social media.
They have
A lot
a
of times when these children are out here committing murders, the parents never even knew that the son or daughter had a gun.
They had no
Well,
clue.
you know, I'm going to go back to the structure and the community and identity, because what I'm starting to see, especially in corporate America, you're starting to see, we have, especially as brothers, we have left single mothers out there. Not all, but some single mothers out there. And what happens, you get these mothers who work in 2 or 3 jobs, and and I've seen it, and I know you've probably seen it in your church and your school, where you have these 15 that are there watching their 10 and 11-year-old kids. And, and one of the worst mistakes I always say, stop telling that 13, 14, 15, they're the man of the house. They are not the man of the house.
Right.
There comes a responsibility and a maturity to be a man of a house.
Right.
And you get out there, and there's no structure, there's no identity, and he's confused, he's lost. So a lot of people have, you talk about being nosy. The thing is, I think some parents would love to be nosy, but they're just trying to survive. They're just trying to make it. So, I do know
It's
the church.
economy built.
Yeah.
It's turning, and it's turning. And matter of fact, he alluded to that. But then that's how ghettos in Chicago came about. With this whole renovations of different property value going up and down, and the Black or African American community was moved into a place and then charged an amount that didn't match the property value, which caused them, fathers and mothers, to work 2 or 3 jobs at a time and raise these children. And then they, with not having the structure applied by the parent, these children did whatever they want, raising themselves. But then that comes with decades go by and generations are built on that. And then it turns into our generation where now we're raising ourselves because that's what they had.
And
to
so
deal
you
with.
think that caused the increase in crime?
This, what we got to understand too, in trying to solve.
Hold that thought. I don't mean
Yes.
to cut you off.
No,
I
you're
don't
right.
mean to cut you off, but we have to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned to more of Steppin' Out.
If you'd like to be a guest on Steppin' Out with D. Lachey Talk Show, send an email to producer@steppinouttalkshow.com or give us a call at 615-863-1373 or simply send us a message on our Facebook page. Stick around for more of Steppin' Out with D. Lachey. It's a book based on a true story. A story that depicts life's harsh realities and the power to overcome. Author Erica Hannah Fowler presents her book, Only If You Knew. Call 901-314-9148 to get your copy today. Have you been looking for the perfect gift for your loved one? Creative Concepts specializes in beautiful custom baskets through creativity and uniqueness that sets them apart from other designers. We have baskets for all occasions and holidays. With a determination to work in a spirit of excellence, every basket is given a creative concept that your loved one will absolutely love. For inquiries and ordering, please visit our website at creativeconceptstoday.com. Follow us on Facebook at Creative Concepts Today and on Instagram at Creative Concepts 2020.
Welcome back. So, Mr. Patterson, I'm sorry, Pastor Patterson.
Make that a happy one, don't you?
Yes, I'm sorry for the disrespect, sir. So before we went to break, you were talking about the ghettos in Chicago. So my question is, what do the ghettos in Chicago have to do with the rising crime among youth and young adults in Nashville?
Again, I was pressing point and picking off of what he said about parents or African-American parents being economically depressed in that time, picking up practices to help them make it in their time, but those practices may not be beneficial to the youth coming up. And so when the youth come up and build on practices that have been passed down and they get into their lives and try to implement them, maybe they may not make it out. And so what I think has happened, one of the reasons, not the main reason, what has happened is when we pick up bad habits, bad practices, and try to apply them in our lives and that are not ethical, our children, they die from this. Our children react to different things. We've gotten away from yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and yes, sir, and no, sir, because of bad practice of how we feel about people.
So basically you're saying what worked for mama may not work for the next generation. Is that what basically what you're saying?
Not necessarily. So again, what I'm saying is they were economically depressed. And so you're looking at
So
a
they
father.
cause a rise in crime?
Yes. Well, let me bring a scenario for you. You're looking at a African-American father who has 10 kids, who has a bill that he cannot pay and has to work 3 jobs and still cannot make ends meet. And so the first thing he thinks is that, well, let me go rob this convenience store that has the rag bologna and the liver cheese and crackers so I can feed my babies.
Okay.
Well, in his mind and his intentions was to feed his children, but it wasn't to make the crime. It's something he had to do. And when he shares that story, not intentionally telling his son, hey, son, you need to do that. But when he shares that story and his son get in that place where he feel like he don't have enough money to pay for his True Religions or his Air Force Ones, his son goes and robs them all. And then now all of a sudden,
I understand what you're saying, but there's like different scenarios. One was a matter of survival, and this one is basically a greed.
Exactly.
And what you're also
Exactly.
saying is that it created latchkey kids
Yeah.
who came home without a parent being home.
Exactly.
So therefore they
Well,
had
they were
homes
idle.
were empty. They
Right.
did not have anyone there to give them guidance during that time.
Exactly.
So therefore that led to a rise in crime because there were
Exactly.
parents being able to be home with their children to watch them and make sure that they were doing exactly what they were supposed to do because they had to take on extra jobs.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Mr. Mason, you as an educator, how do you work with children that you see that come to school every day and you can see that there may be some issues in the home? How do you work and deal with them to try to combat them going down that road to being one of these people that are out here committing these crimes of robbery, murders, and rapes as teenagers and young adults?
Well, one thing that we need to know is that adults aren't the only ones who experience stress. Children experience stress,
Wow.
even more now so than it has ever been. Kids are dealing with more issues of DCS coming in and taking them from the home and taking them from their parents. Kids are dealing with coming home and not having food to eat when they get home.
Wow.
Kids are dealing with so many issues that we don't even pay attention to and understand that keeps them from giving full focus to school and being sure they're able to achieve in school. And when you're unable to achieve, then your confidence goes down, and then you don't see yourself as worthy or valuable, and then you become a dream killer, as I talked about earlier, and you don't care what you do or who you offend.
Okay, so when you talk about dream killers, what are some of the statistics that you were sharing with us earlier when it comes to crime in Nashville?
Well, crime in Nashville has risen 160%. We went from 2014 having only 41 murders to in 2017 having 107 murders. So that is an extremely high amount
it is.
of murders to experience in just a 3-year span. So we have to address
Many of
this
those by youth
by
and
youth,
young adults.
By youth and young adults, yes. So 15 of those were kids under the age of 17 that lost their lives in 2017. So, I mean, we have to address the issue. We have to address the elephant sitting in the room. What are we going to do to make sure that our kids feel safe in the streets and can make different decisions?
I don't mean to cut you off, but you made a profound statement. You said, what are we going to do?
Exactly.
Not what is going to happen in the home, as Pastor Patterson saying, where it starts at home. You're saying, what are we going to do? The community, the parents, the faith-based leaders, the teachers at school. It is a collective effort. You know, they say it takes a village to raise a child, and I really believe that it takes a village, and it does not necessarily fall completely on the responsibility of the parents. And say, if the child does something that it's started at home, something is wrong in the home.
Right. Right.
What do you think?
No, I think you're right, and it goes back to, I'm gonna go back to structure and community, because there's so many programs out there. We point fingers and say, what are we gonna do? People are doing stuff. I know from Eric Capehart, he has the All Kings Men Mentor. Lionel Matthews is doing a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff. And parents also have to take responsibility to seek things. Like the church I belong to, we have a church league basketball that you can come sign up. We had like 8 kids come sign up.
But does that cost?
No, it does not. But the thing is, if it costs or it doesn't cost, just the first step of finding programs. There's so many programs that you can get your, because we can definitely go to schools. I know people are in schools. We can go into the communities and everything. But I know, and as you were saying, idle time was one thing, because my parents worked. I was raised by my grandparents, and they worked. But I was always into something, right? And I totally get it that they cost, but there's a lot of programs where we can get our kids into. So as leaders, faith leaders, educators, and everything, we really have to. One thing I would love to see. I would love to see at the beginning of school programs that people can sign up for. It could be karate. It could be Boy Scouts. There's so many programs that we could get these kids into. But I've tried to sign up. I've tried to sign up a kid up, and the parent gave me 10 million excuses.
But my question is, and I know we're running out of time, but before you get to the stage of being a teenager, because I think sometimes when you want to reach out to them when they're a teenager, I think that sometimes they may be a little too late. What do we do when they're young, when they're that 7-year-old, that 8-year-old, and that 9-year-old, and they're showing aggression before they get to the point where they're 14 and they're carrying a pistol or taking pictures with pistols? What do we do? I mean, what do you have in place before they get to the phase of being a teenager?
And that's what I was talking about when I said that we need to teach social skills and conflict resolution to our young people. Social media made us unsocial. So now we don't know how to interact with each other when we come in contact with each other. And the first thing that we go to is aggression. If I got a problem with you, I'm going to throw a glass of champagne on you. That's what they see on Real Housewives of Atlanta.
After I posted about you 10 times.
Right, exactly. So we have to get away from, we have to
on me,
teach.
honey?
Remember what I said, we have to model. We have
right.
to model these things, social skills, conflict resolution. We have to show them how we want them to act. And if we're not doing it, then why we expect them to do it?
All right. Thank you all so much. I am so sorry we are out of time. I
There's
would
gonna be a
love
part
to
two.
continue this discussion.